Welcome to the new sound of online radio. Welcome to the sound of Universal Broadcasting Network. 'Cause you make me feel like I've been locked out of hell. A mix of today's hits and hard-to-find favorites, combined with the most entertaining and intriguing talk anywhere. This is your sound. This is the sound of Universal Broadcasting Network at UBNradio.com.
Shut up, just shut up, shut up, 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 shut up, just shut up, shut up.
Oh no.
There we go.
Incident pause.
All right. Thank you so much. All right, everybody. Thanks. Welcome
Hello.
to Shut Up. I'm here, Deborah, Zara, Kobylt. I know the three names are irritating, and Linda Hoffman. So thanks for joining us today. And we have sort of a fun show.
Yeah.
There's all kinds of crazy stuff going on between Donald Trump, who's coming to town, I think, Friday this week, and all of his crazy comments. Love talking about that. The New York Stock Exchange, I have my thoughts on that. But,
Right.
you know, I
it's
don't...
going to be interesting to find out what happened there.
Right?
That's a big deal.
Right.
I
And then we
mean,
have, I want your thoughts on that. And then we have a really interesting author calling in, a psychologist, Dr. Catherine Foster, to talk about men and women
Romance.
in romance. I have so many
Woohoo.
questions for her, so I hope she calls in soon. But how are you?
I'm great.
Yeah.
How was your 4th of July weekend?
Quiet.
Yeah?
Not too much because, you know, I've been going through a lot lately.
Yes, you've
with,
had a lot on your plate.
Dad not being around anymore. But then John got sick, so he wasn't feeling well. He ended up in surgery, and he's doing great, thank goodness. But
Well, you had a lot on your
we
plate.
had a lot going on. So on
Right.
any given moment, I wanted to go out. I didn't want to go out. It was probably the quietest 4th of July I have ever had.
And
I
both your
couldn't-
boys are out of town. You have one in town.
Two
And
of them
so-
are out of the country,
Yeah.
and one of them comes back this afternoon. He was in Sri Lanka.
How exciting.
And the little guy, so yeah, the third, and then you came over
Right,
with your kids.
I came over on my way back to the from the beach where I thought I'd get some R&R, and I stayed at a really lovely hotel and didn't sleep one wink because it was so noisy.
I can't believe they
And
didn't
I
give you
paid
something back.
$800 for no sleep and no hot water. So that was a wonderful weekend.
Okay, they can't control who's above you, but they could at least control the hot water. That's like a 5-star, really, really
Yeah,
nice beach
it was
hotel.
nice. But I was hoping to get a discount. Is that cheap of me? But I didn't get a discount. They
At an
asked me-
$800 room where there was no hot water, I would have wanted a discount.
I asked for it. I have no problem asking, but I was asked to stay an extra night, and by then I didn't want to.
To
So-
stay an extra night, or you would get money off the extra night?
No, I would to stay the extra night and get 20% off, which big deal. What was that, $100?
Yeah, I don't blame you. I would have left too. And then you came to my
But
place.
yes, and we had a hot dog.
Fabulous time.
Great.
Hot dogs and hamburgers and all that. So what did you do over the weekend, Craig?
Kurt, actually.
Yeah,
Kurt.
that too.
Yeah.
Why not? I can't get people's names right
No,
ever.
it's
Craig,
fine.
Kurt's very similar. It's not Richard.
Yeah, exactly. we just bought fireworks and we lit them off.
Oh, you
yeah,
did?
Yeah. So,
Were you able
No
to
one
do
got
that
hurt?
there, or?
Well, we went to my mom's house in North Hollywood, and everyone everywhere shoots them off. They're not supposed
Oh,
to.
that's
but,
fun.
You know.
You get
oh,
away with
I
it.
love
Yeah.
that.
So-
I was going to get sparklers, and I just didn't do that this year. It was my first. I felt very patriotic.
Yeah, we
And
have
I-
extra if you want some.
I'll take some. Bring them in next
Yeah.
week. I love doing
I
that.
love the
Bring you in a box.
sparklers. Those
I
are the
do
best.
too, the
They're old
sparklers.
fashioned, the vintage.
Yeah.
I love those.
Yeah. Oh, good. Is our caller on by the? She is.
She just started calling.
She just
All
started.
right.
There we
Okay.
go.
Dr. Foster, you there?
Yes.
Oh,
Hi.
I am
This is
so
Deborah.
glad to talk to you.
Hi.
I'm Deborah Kobylt
Hi, Deborah.
and Linda Hoffman.
How are you? We're thrilled to have you
Good.
on our show. Romance, what a topic, because I'm very
know.
interested because I don't even know what the word means anymore. I haven't had any romance in my life for years. Isn't that pathetic?
Oh, no.
It is. It's pathetic.
We have to help Linda. I'll tell you my situation. Now, by the way, let me just say you're a psychologist, and your practice is where in the Valley.
I'm in
she's
Fort
in
Worth, Texas.
Texas.
Oh, you're
Yeah.
in Texas.
Yeah.
Oh, why did I miss that? And you wrote a book, The Naked Truth About Men and Romance: The Neuroscience of Romance. I love that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's in the
exciting.
brain. Men. So the gist of it is that men have different neurons when it comes to romance than women, and we have to understand what that is so we can relate better. Is that the gist, or maybe you could give us a synopsis?
Actually, I think part of the gist is that women work very hard on their relationships, trying to heal men and give them a female brain.
Ah.
To heal men? I don't want to heal them. I just want them to be more like me.
Okay. Well, there you go.
And by the way, let me
Yeah.
just tell you, I have 3 sons and a husband, and I am so overwhelmed in my
You're in a
house.
male world.
Even my dog is a guy, so
my gosh.
I can't get a break. You know,
You
so,
have got to get a female cat.
I have a female cat, and she's
Oh,
real,
okay.
She's lovely.
She is lovely.
She's a lovely
actually, yeah.
cat.
Okay, so keep going, just so you know.
Yes.
So we have to adjust to how they function in terms of romance.
I think women should do less adjusting.
Oh, less adjusting.
Yeah, and more understanding of their own amazing brains.
Mm-hmm.
And allow themselves to be freer from romance. I don't mean not being in the relationship. I mean not trying to change it so much and lowering expectations. Women can spend an awful lot of time in angst and being depressed, because a guy doesn't. I'll explain that more, but because the guy doesn't really give her what she was expecting.
What do most women expect? I'll bet
Flowers.
you. Forget flowers. I don't care. I know for me, I don't care about flowers. I don't care about gifts. I don't need jewelry. I just like the time. But a lot of guys, I know my husband, he loves to read. He walks up the stairs with an iPad in his hand. He's in the bathroom with an iPad. He's in the hospital with an iPad. And so I'm thinking, I'm over here. So I think that's kind of easy because a lot of women.
Yeah, no, I hear you. And women are much more relational than men. I mean, their brains are set up for that.
Right. So what do you do? Just not care? You go ahead.
What's that?
You just not care and let him be who he is because you say don't change it, but do you ask? Can you talk to me, or what do you do?
I think you do. I think you have to. I think women have to be more proactive in explaining the differences. I'd like to mention I also wrote a book for men, for guys who don't read self-help stuff, but kind of a bullet-pointed, precise guide called What Women Want Really. And it's meant to be, a guy can read it alone, but it's really meant to be read by a couple, like once a year, to go over the main stuff. Mm-hmm. So he's empowered to get it. It's really not that guys don't want to give it. It's just that they don't understand
know how?
because their brains are different.
Okay, but is that our fault as women? Like, for example, I have 3 sons. Should I try and teach them sort of a nice way to be with women, and they're like, "Oh, mom," and then they just walk away. So I'm thinking it's got to be genetic because
it is genetic, most certainly. But I think like taking sons and going over that book, What Women Want Really, with them early would help. I know I did stuff like that with my son, and I'm happy with.
That we were talking about a book for men before we started the show, and we just sort of joked saying, who would read it? They wouldn't spend the time to do it. But
I wish I knew. I would have read this instead of Goodnight Moon or something like that. Forget Goodnight Moon or anything like that. It would be, so what do women really want? But all right. So what do you tell couples who come into your office or need some help? What are some of the main problems between men and women?
I think the main deal goes back to our brain differences and what we expect. In fact, let me talk about how our expectations of romance really come out of childhood, because that kind of nails it. Okay. As kids, the genders don't like each other that much. There's exceptions, but pretty much they separate into same-sex groups. And the reason is that they're so different. Girls focus on each other, not an activity. And their dialogue is rich, and they make self-disclosures, and that's the key to their friendship. But at the same time, boys are doing group activities that center around competitive activity. And when you're, playing football or soccer or whatever, you're not supposed to be talking a lot. Mm-hmm. And you're certainly not supposed to be making personal revelations. And so guys establish hierarchies, and that's how they play. So the boys and girls come into romance suddenly because, it's our sex drive that really compel us to become intimates after being kind of nothing, so it's going from not much to something very intense. And women expect men to give what they give, emotional closeness through dialogue and empathic listening. That includes tuning
I'm
in.
laughing because also one of my best friends is a guy, and sometimes I'll be like, "Oh, do you feel like talking?" And he'll be like, "Oh God, no."
Not the
And I'm
not
thinking,
the T word.
"Geez,
talk.
we're just friends," and he doesn't even want to talk. So you're right about that. I think we always like to be
Yeah.
listened to. And so, what do? You just
Right.
call a girlfriend
I mean,
instead?
women expect even more. I mean, because they get this in their childhood relationships, where they expect a guy to watch for the rise of feelings as they talk. They expect the guy to stay with them verbally and non-verbally and listen for changes. But a guy's brain structure isn't set up for that. So I think that she has got to ask for some very specific things. She's got to say, I'm a woman. I'm wired differently. It means so much to me if you listen for the purpose of just understanding.
Okay, but a lot of guys, this, are going to roll their eyes and go, "Oh man." So what do you do about that?
Right.
Because believe me, I've had that. So then what? Do you just sort of let them be? I mean, how does that work?
I think you have to explain more.
Keep at it. In other words, keep at it. Explain it in a way they can understand.
Well,
right?
it's like this. Most couples, when they sit down to talk, neither of them know that most men pay attention to and rely on their thoughts, while most women pay attention to and rely on their feelings. This isn't about IQ, because IQ between the genders tends to be equal. But the way this shakes out is that a woman tries to share something because she has a very thick bridge between her left and right hemispheres, and it causes her to be able to access, now get this, 412 separate emotions.
Oh.
So she goes to share something with him.
No wonder why we're a hot mess.
We're walking around like live wires.
Actually, well, I'm going to say more about that, okay? Because I don't think the emotional piece is a mess. But let me say more later. But so she starts to share, and he steps over her feelings, and he reaches for whatever logic he can go to, and he takes pride in noticing inconsistencies as she talks, and finding solutions quickly for her. Mm-hmm. And he may argue just for the sake of intellectual stimulation. He's seeking to be factually right. But all that feels like an argument to her. She's doing something altogether different. And I think this is where a woman has to clarify, and she has to be confident, which means she kind of has to know more about her own brain and how it works. Unknowingly, he cuts her off from sharing, and that's how she's setting out to establish romance. That's how she does it. He does it typically on a physical level. She needs to express herself and connect through dialogue. That's what it's all about.
I have a question. I have a question for you. Is this somewhat generational a little bit? Because, and also, what if you're a really athletic girl and you're really a competitive athlete? Are they different than some other women? Does that make sense? Because
that's a good question.
Some being athletic doesn't determine that, but there are a percentage of women who have brains that are more like males.
Mm-hmm. I think I do, actually.
I think you do too.
I'm
Way
a very
more. You
masculine.
can cut it off.
It's not good. That's
but
why
it's not bad either. Somebody like myself who is all about the feelings, morning, noon, and night. I'm thinking, all right, cut it off a little bit, and it's tough. Yeah.
Still, though, there is something about the female brain, no matter who you are, that is quite essentially different. Mm-hmm. Let me talk about this because you were talking about the mess about emotions.
I was joking.
We now know from sophisticated MRIs that by the age of 17, a girl's brain has transformed, so that she now processes emotion not like a guy does, but the processing goes up into the cerebral cortex, which is a higher brain, and it's where things like reflection take place and reasoning. So she can now explain what she feels and why she feels, and she can hook up words to feelings, which guys have a hard time doing. She can reason through her emotions. She can really talk about it. So by the age of 17, she's had an emotional intelligence leap, and she can now think her feelings and feel her thoughts. So it's not just a crazy, like a PMS kind of irrational thing. It's more her emotions and her thoughts are hooked up together. So her identity becomes associated with this feeling thought thing that she does. And this doesn't happen to to men. I mean, you can ask a guy whether he's 7 years old or he's 57 years old why he's mad or sad, and you're likely to get, I don't know.
Or really, or
You know?
I'll get, I'm not, I'm fine. That's what I usually
Yeah,
get. I'm
yeah.
just fine.
In
Right.
And then
other
I'll
words,
like-
it means I don't know what you're talking about.
and then I'll go in again. And it's like, I'm fine.
Right.
So, I mean, I get a lot of that. A lot of the just shut it down. So I've
You
learned
you
not
see,
to ask
the
anymore.
truth is, there's hundreds of studies that have shown that women have greater empathy, greater emotional responsiveness and nurturance, and feel motivated to extend help because of that.
Mm-hmm.
And they pick up on nonverbal cues. They read another person's unstated feelings. Now, when you think about it, it had to be that way. Because if any female failed to respond to the distress of her little one, she would lose him. The greatest killer of kids is still, even in America, is still accidents. So Mother Nature had to sensitize her so she could read a kid's mind and feel for the kid, even if the kid couldn't give words,
For
So
survival.
she developed
But-
this whole, yeah.
Go ahead. I asked you about generational because I noticed a lot of
Oh,
the
yeah.
like really young girls, maybe in high school or college, they seem to sort of, I don't know, have their emotions more in check when I watch them or talk to them and hear them talking, and they're also pretty athletic. And I just wonder if that is a component, and maybe generation wise, they just maybe saw their moms or cousins or aunts maybe acting a little more emotional, and then they intellectualize that and decide not to. Is that possible?
I think that's real possible. And I think more what they saw was how the marriage wasn't working, and
That's interesting.
decided to maybe try to be a little bit more like guys. And that's not altogether bad, but there's also research that women's brains have extra plasticity. And so women have gone into the male work world. Talk about an environment designed by men, and it's according to male thinking. The work world probably isn't the way women would have done it had they been the originators of it. But women going into that have often developed a kind of a second brain or a second layer over their feminine brain to adapt to all that. And the question is that good for us? Does that make us sick? I think the biggest thing is that a woman be proud of her feminine brain. It's truly amazing. I do talk about this in the book. And keep connected with things like the free flow of dialogue with another woman, or her need to nurture something or somebody, and stay in touch with all that amazing feminine stuff. Because we don't want to become too much like men.
Right. So we do that with our friends. And I think what I'm hearing
Yeah.
is you can just have low expectations with your spouse or significant other. You just fulfill it with your friends. Those kind of
You
feelings.
know,
And I'm listening
that's
to you, and I have different men in my life for different reasons. A husband, a kids, friends, and I have a different
yeah.
relationship with those men depending upon who they are in my life.
Mm-hmm.
But I do notice the common component, whereas I notice for me, maybe it's because I talk too much, but it's like they just shut it down. It's like they just stop, and I think, uh-oh. So
you
is
go-
that something that men do, to just shut it off, just cut it off? Because most of the men in my life always do that, old, young.
see, you have to be careful, because
Yeah.
is a guy shutting down his emotions, or does he have them in the first place?
Probably not.
Yeah, you
Probably
have to
not.
be careful
So,
about
yeah.
that.
Well, what does that mean? You can't give a guy an emotion pill. I mean, they just are what they are, right?
Yes, but you can get them to comprehend that you're different and that you have have different needs.
I think that's
that
the hard
works quite
part.
well.
Yeah.
I joke with guys in therapy, and I say that they need to tattoo on one wrist, reminding them to say, "Honey, you're the most important person in my life. I want to know how you feel." And then on the
I
other
would
wrist,
drop
tattoo and
dead.
tell me more about how you feel, because it has to be tattooed.
Okay, I'm coming to you. I mean, I would drop dead if John ever said, "Dear, You're the most important person. I'd like to know how you feel. I would just fall over on the chair because that's just not
Well,
who
it's
he
not
is.
his style.
No, it's not who he is at all. I mean, he's there and he's present, but
Right.
definitely not a warm and fuzzy. What about your ex guy? All right,
Well,
so Linda has an
Yeah,
ex-husband.
I have the ex-husband.
2 kids, a boy and a girl, and you're not dating right now, and she's beautiful.
Pathetic.
So
Oh.
Yeah, I
gotta help her.
I wish you were in LA because I'd probably be your number one client. My ex-husband is an interesting animal.
animal.
He was very sensitive,
Yeah,
and
Jim's-
I was more
Jim
the
is sensitive.
masculine.
Yeah,
so it
it's
was
true.
sort of different. I get what you're saying though, because I think that we can express our emotions, and then we get to a point where the man will just turn off, like they just don't want to go there. So I think that's when you've reached their breaking point. I probably did that with him, which is why I'm divorced.
Especially if he doesn't know what you're doing.
Right.
If he doesn't have a some kind of a definition or a sense about why you need to do this, and he's just different.
Right. I think it's just admitting that we're just different is kind of freeing in a way, don't you, Deborah? And it's freeing in a way. We don't have to try to change somebody. We just live your life and have your girlfriends. And
The deal is that women have so much to contribute to the world.
right.
I mean, it was the psychiatrist Carl Jung who said that the only way to save Western man is through restoring feminine values. And the more women get out there with their ability to, the women are more interdependent. They're more flexible and compromising. They really like being in relationships. Can you imagine if women turned their care on tending the earth or taking care of our environment or whatever? There's so much amazing thing women can do with the kind of brains they have.
I feel like we're in that movement now. There's a lot of
Yeah.
women stepping forward, and even in politics,
I
I
like
think we're
it.
going to see more of it. Don't you, Deborah?
Absolutely.
I feel like there's a woman's movement. I know we hear it in Hollywood. It comes and goes throughout the years, but I feel it. I feel it's the time of the woman for sure.
I think a lot of women like that are really, they know how to ask for what they want. Like what you're
Right.
saying is,
Ask for what you want.
ask for what you want. I don't think all men
Yeah.
are receptive to that, though. That's what I'm saying. I really don't.
They
I know.
they may not be, and a woman may not want to be with a guy like that, or like you were saying, she may want to really understand that she has to supplement with female friends.
Right. I mean, there's so many ways around this, but that's why I said generation wise. Because, all right, like I look at some of my friends who are much younger and they almost need less from a guy because of they'll date a guy, they'll have a very intimate relationship with him, and then they're done with him. And I think, God, I never really did that. And it's
Yeah.
almost like they're acting like the guys. I mean, what do you make of that versus, it's almost like they don't need the man as much. Does that make sense?
I think we actually could have predicted all this because as women find fulfillment in other arenas of life, they need less romance, and I think that's good.
I think it's a good
sense.
thing too. I
Right.
really do.
Because then we can turn our attention onto other things.
Now, what about you with dating other guys? Like, what's going on?
I don't really
But
have
why?
time.
Why? Is it because the
I-
men out there aren't listening, or what's going on?
You know what? That's a real good question. That's a whole nother show. I know there's single moms out there wondering, where are these guys? I don't meet them. Coffee shop? No thanks. Who do you see in a coffee shop? I was over at Starbucks the other day and I didn't see anybody.
And you didn't see any.
No, sorry. And it's harder when you're older because how do you really meet someone? That's it. Unless you do the dating services.
Be
And I'm,
super open to it. Maybe.
I guess so. I probably
Okay, my friends always drag me with them everywhere because I'll meet guys for them and just talk, and I'm really open, but I'm taken, so
Right, it's easier
I'll just
when you're
pass them over
taken.
to the next one. It's like, oh, I found a nice one for you. Go over there.
Right.
But what are
Do you help single women with that issue? I mean, I'm sure there's a lot
sure.
of women besides the couple thing. You have single women who are not middle aged yet, but approaching.
Sure, and
it's hard.
and it's very hard to meet men. I think the dating services are just about what you have to turn to.
Ugh, I think they're
And-
awful. My girlfriend was over and we were looking through it and we
That's
were laughing.
depressing.
Even my oldest son was laughing. We were just going through it for her, and we thought I'd rather be alone for the rest of my
Me
life.
too.
These
That's
pictures
where I'm
were-
at, right there,
Yeah.
alone.
Yeah. I mean, you have to be awfully open-minded,
Yeah.
and allow yourself to get to know somebody. And I know it's
I
hard.
think I'm going to take your advice on what you're talking about with men. Like when you're in a relationship, I'm just going to move on with my life and have a good time. And if someone comes along, great. and just put my energies into other things.
Yeah.
I'm going to take your advice on
well,
how.
There was a French study that revealed that it is female friendship that is the major contributor to happiness. I mean,
I totally
female
agree with that. I completely
Yeah.
agree.
it's huge. It
Yeah.
really is. And part of what's so cool about it is that two women have a lot of what's called circulating oxytocin. Oxytocin is what you need to raise babies, but it also makes you a very great friend because it's a bonding chemical, and it makes you giving and open and self-sacrificing and so on, But two women get together, and the way they talk and the way they treat each other is extremely different from two men who might be competitive and concealing, Because two women get together, and if they want to take the relationship, if they want to make it deeper, what they're going to do is they're going to disclose emotion for the sake of being very, very real.
Right. I see that happening.
Is he on? Can
with
you
a
ask
lot
Tony?
of friendships. But
Sorry, I was talking to
Yeah.
our board op
Yeah.
here. But and what about you? What do you find with?
our board operator.
Yeah, where are you?
He's the
trying
only
to-
guy in the room. We got to ask him.
What goes on with your wife? I mean, does she try communicating with you? And
Do you have these issues?
do you guys have these issues too?
Put him on the spot.
She sometimes she tells me that I don't communicate enough with her. That I wish you would say your feelings more, because whenever.
And what do you do?
Well, he leaves the room.
Yeah, I mean, I try. I mean, we get in fights sometimes, and then I just kind of shut down, is what she says. So
See, that's what guys do.
Yeah, I
What's
don't-
wrong with you people? I mean, that's what you do. You
Yeah.
just this poor guy, right? No, that's what you do. That you shut down, and then for me, I'll get more irritated. I'm like,
That's
hey, wait a
exactly what
minute.
happens.
Oh, she gets more
Yeah.
irritated.
Yeah,
Oh,
she's-
good. Tell her I'm in her club too. And then what do you do? Then do you walk away?
Well, I mean.
See, this happens
eventually-
everywhere.
Yeah, eventually I'll open up to her if she's very persistent about it, but.
Okay,
it
then what
takes
should she
time.
do to get you to open up? Let me ask you.
Give you space.
I mean,
sounds
yeah,
like.
I just like to be alone for a bit. I just want to stew and just figure out what's going on, and
Then you'll go back to
yeah,
her.
and then eventually I'll go back to her. I mean, deep down I love her, and I
You want her to be happy.
Yeah, I want her to be happy, and I spend time with her, and I want to be around her. But sometimes when we,
Dr. Foster, I bet you would agree with that. Give them space and time to process.
See, a lot of women won't do that.
Yeah.
They'll keep going back and
be-
back,
because
right?
See, women's brains are different, and they can hook up words and feelings rather smoothly and quickly, and guys have more trouble. So you have to sometimes ask a question. Texting is great. Like 3:00 you text and you say, I would really like to talk about blah 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 tonight. And then when he gets home at 7, then he's ready.
Oh, that's a good idea.
But he needs some time. He
Okay.
can't, he
Butter
can't
him up.
do what a woman can do.
When I text, a lot of times it gets like misunderstood, or
Oh.
if it goes on too long. If it's a really quick text, then it's fine. But
Yeah.
if you're having a conversation over texting, I don't like it. I'll just say, hey, just give me a quick call. I think it's
Yeah.
better.
Sure.
But are
sure.
most
But I'm just talking about giving a heads up. you
Yeah,
know?
heads up. This is what's coming when you get home.
Yeah, but then they won't come home. But
They'll circle the block.
my question is, are most relationships out there lasting, or what's the divorce rate or separation rate out there?
Well, the deal is, and this is one of the reasons that I wrote The Naked Truth About Men and Romance, is that it's so skewed. I mean, 2/3 of divorces are initiated by women. It's women who are struggling in relationships. And I think it's because their expectations that come from childhood, they come in and they're so surprised. This guy doesn't talk. This guy doesn't seem to have any feelings. What's going on? This isn't what I expected. And they get hurt and they get disappointed and then very lonely.
Yeah, that
And
makes
then
sense.
The divorce talk begins. And we say 2/3 of women initiate divorces.
I read that.
But
The women mainly initiate divorce, which I thought
Oh,
was
yeah.
surprising.
Probably because they're lonely. However, then I don't know if I read it that you said this, but then once it continues and they're in the process of divorcing, then the men sort of get used to the idea and the women just sort of back down. Is that true too?
It can be. It can be. But a lot of times when a woman is done, she's done. Because usually she's been asking for what she needs for a long, long time, and then she stops. She just realizes she can't
Dead
get
end
what
street.
she needs,
Right.
and that's it. That's why I think it's imperative that couples, there is no other part of life where we'd be okay with going into a huge commitment with such little amount of information. of valuable information. I mean, we've got to understand that our brain structures and hormones gear us for different stuff.
I've always
And
thought it should be a course in middle school
Yeah.
and in high
Oh, my
school.
gosh.
I mean, if you
Yes.
have to take
That's
all
a
the
great idea.
nonsense that you have to take, because I see it with my kids, I'm thinking, God, what does he need to know that for? Honestly, I don't tell them that.
Right.
But it's true. And I think, why not learn about relationships and interpersonal
Hello?
relationships and do, a little bit of role playing? Because a lot of people might not have the best role models in their parents, for
Right.
example.
Or they're all brothers and they don't have
That's
a
something
female.
to do, doctor.
There you go.
Sort of
We have
push
your
it in the
next
school system.
project.
Honestly, push
Yeah.
it in the school systems.
I like that idea.
Oh, wouldn't that be amazing? I would just love
It
that.
would be interesting to see if the test, if it came back where when they got older, there less divorce rate. It'd be interesting to see. It's a great study.
I bet
like
it
that
would.
idea. Yeah, I bet it would too.
So what else other than, the communication? What else is really tripping couples up?
Well, a part of what's so baffling and just really angst causing for women is that men are what we call systemizers, which means that they like to observe and figure out a system. It can be a pencil sharpener, it can be world economics, it doesn't really matter. But in order to do that, they detach. So they detach from relationships and they go into a clear focus about this thing that they're doing. Now, most women are empathizers,
Right.
and they don't detach. They attach, and they stay attached so that they can do their thing, which is to discern another's feelings and tune in. So a woman comes into a relationship and she thinks, well, of all relationships, certainly romance is about attaching, right?
Mm-hmm.
But
Right.
women do that naturally, while men detach on and off as an automatic way of being.
So that's their
It's just that-
natural way.
But then
Yeah,
I think
I mean-
women get really irritated. So what would you tell women who get irritated over something like that? Because then we're going to have to go. We have another caller.
Right.
Yeah,
Who get really irritated. Would you say back down?
I think she's got to
Yeah.
understand that his detachment has nothing to do with her at all. It is a way of being, and it has to do with his brain.
I see. And so
Yeah.
then just back off.
Can't
but
take
then,
it personally. Can't take it personally.
Any other, do you have the 10 commandments of what women should do to understand men, if you will?
Well, they're going to have to understand how important sex is to men. I mean, men are 4 times
that.
more likely to think that sex and emotional connection are the same thing. And see, women don't typically think that way.
I
Men are
do.
much more physical.
I do. I know. I'm one of those rare people. I was with a group of friends, men and women, and they were all complaining. And I just kept my mouth shut. I thought, well, I'm not going to say anything. And they were all complaining about women and their girlfriends. And I thought, oops. So when does that start to go away? Where men and women just sort of, that period is over,
You mean the period of high sexual activity?
Yeah. In the beginning of a relationship, it's
Yeah.
everything. And then the
The
women,
newlywed
typically the women are the ones who sort of go by the other side.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Because at the beginning of a relationship, we have a hormonal cocktail that is very, very significant. I mean, Mother Nature wants us to couple, and she has given us hormones that just really make that imperative. I mean, you have high dopamine, which causes you to be very open to one another and very open to new experiences and very happy. And then when you're away from each other, your serotonin, which is, what antidepressants give us, go down so that you're blue until you're with the person again. And then you're filled with dopamine and very happy again. But with that comes testosterone also. And the real clincher, and I think this is profoundly interesting, is that men have more oxytocin during courtship. So they are more like women during
That's why it
courtship.
works
They
out.
talk more.
The flowers.
They disclose
Yeah.
more.
Candy.
Nicer
Yeah,
dinners.
yeah. It has to be that way so they can bond.
Compliments.
All right. Well, Dr. Foster,
Interesting.
you've been very interesting. Again, your book, your latest book, The Naked Truth About Men and Romance and Neuroscience of Romance. Thank you so much for being
Thank
with us
you
today.
so much.
Absolutely.
Thank you. And when you
Very
come back,
important.
we're gonna have you on from time to time
Yeah.
for advice. Can we do
Okay.
that? Yeah, will you be
Very
like
good.
our resident advisor for relationships? We're going to see how Linda's doing.
Yeah,
we're
you'll be
going to
checking
send
in.
Linda out for dating, and then we'll have you back on.
I might need speed
We'll have a lot to
dial.
talk about.
I'll need speed dial with you. that's for sure.
Thanks for
Thank
being
you
here.
so much.
Bye bye.
Very good. Take care.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Oh, well,
that
she
was
was interesting.
fascinating.
Well, because the relationships that I have are all different.
Right.
Kids, husband, friends, and they're all different kinds of male relationships. But I do notice for me, one component, which is just like you said, they want their own space, and you can't go after them if they're
Pulling
retreating.
back, you got to step
Exactly.
back, right?
Right, but
Yeah.
you guys have to learn not to retreat. What about that? Like, how do we teach you to not retreat?
It sounds like you can't.
Yeah, that's just the way I am, I guess. I don't know.
We're all like that. I don't know. Anyway, but thank you. That was great. Now we have another caller, right? Because we
have-
do
Yes,
we
have
do.
another.
Oh, great. We have. Is Brandon?
I mean, talk about droughts, right? Talk about dating droughts.
We're going
and all that
from
other
romance
stuff.
drought to the real drought. The
Yeah, but
water
we're going to
drought.
work on that for you. Now, who is he
This
on the line?
Brandon-
Do we have him?
Brandon Goshi.
Yes, I'm here.
Did I pronounce your name right?
Yeah, that was correct.
Okay. Brandon is with the Metropolitan Water Districts. You're in charge of water policy and strategy, right?
What the heck does that mean?
Yeah,
in
what
charge
does
of
that
water
mean?
policy and strategy. That's like a mouthful, but I know that's something. So what is that?
I think it just means that we think about the ways to make sure that we have water supply for the future.
Which is very important in Southern California or all throughout California. 29%, I read, I think it was in the LA Times, that in May we cut back 29%. It probably
For
doesn't do
residential
much,
use, isn't that
but
correct?
Is that accurate, or is that just an article that is making us feel better?
Yeah, I think it's just looking at a few different places
Okay.
in California that may have cut back.
Yeah.
But I think the important thing is what water use is on a sustainable basis through this year and out into the future.
And what is it? I mean, everyone has a different version of what they need their water for. So what are you saying that people need to do to conserve on water? I mean, some of the issues that we have here in California. For example, the farmers are using the majority of our water. The almond growers, for example. This article just came out, was it today, about Tom Selleck?
Oh,
now, I
right,
doubt
right,
he is
that's-
personally running in with buckets to get extra
Well,
water.
they said it truckloads.
Truckloads.
Do you know
but
anything about that?
Do you know anything about that? That he, because he has an avocado farm, isn't that right? That apparently those farms are using extra water. Apparently, a lot of our problems here in California are the farmers using the water, and then. I know the government is trying to go after the residential use, but most of the use is from farming. What do you say about that?
Well, I think the issue is that when we get into these situations on a shorter-term basis, so things that are happening now when we're in one of the most critical dry periods in California's history, what's happening now isn't necessarily how it's going to be year after year and out into the future. The way that we can shape that future is by looking at the way water is used, looking at who's using that water and for what purposes, and trying to achieve a balance of the appropriate water uses for.
All right, what's appropriate?
Well, appropriate, I mean, I'm not saying there's any kind of standard for that, but just as an example, I think there's been a look at the outdoor water use in Southern California.
You're talking
on a
about
residential
lawns?
basis.
You're talking about lawns.
Yeah, there's been a lot of talk about lawns, and in fact, the Metropolitan Water District, which covers 6 counties in Southern California, has committed a great deal of incentive funding to try and change the landscape, to incentivize folks to consider whether or not they want lawns or to replace those lawns with California-friendly plants and other kinds of landscape. That kind of activity, if you remove lawns, changes the long-term water use patterns of those households or businesses that take out those lawns,
Right.
and then changes the amount of water that's needed to be developed.
Do you have like a
out into the future.
statistic on the amount of water that would save by transferring over to drought-friendly
or even
plants
turf,
or
but
turf? Yeah.
But also, what percentage of the water is comes from used water?
Residential.
Comes from the residential use on the outside of the home. Do you have any idea what is that percent? Because I'm told it's a small percentage of our problem. Isn't that true?
Well, it's not a small percentage of the problem per se, and I think you're talking about the difference between residential use and, say, agricultural water use. Mm-hmm. While it is a fact that agricultural water use uses much more water than residential water use, but that's part of California's economy.
So it's bringing back.
California is an agricultural state, and that's part of California's economy. So the idea is
So in
for
other
the
words,
residents.
you
Go
can
ahead.
use the water if it's going to make money for the state, but you can't use the water if you want to make your lawn green. Is that what you're saying? I mean, in other words, the government is regulating, saying you can use it to make money and sell the almonds over to China, because I think most of our almonds end up over in China, if I'm not mistaken. But you can't really use that water to make your lawn look nice. Go buy turf or get some drought-resistant plants. Is that what you're trying to say?
Well, in a way, everything's related, right? California, or agriculture is one industry in California, right? There's obviously other types of industry, and California's economy is huge, and in fact, one of the largest economies in the world. Even if you looked at it on a country scale, the state of California would be one of the largest economies in the world. That economy requires people to be in California, and people being in California requires a lifestyle that makes people want to live in California.
Mm-hmm.
If those water use choices are part of that lifestyle, then it's important to recognize that providing water for certain lifestyle choices to make California's economy work, it's all related.
So
it shouldn't be put in a either or question,
right,
like that, residential water use or agricultural water use. I don't think that's the way to look at it. I think the way to look at it is what do we want California to be? And water is an important part of that, so how do we provide that water?
So you're looking at long-term strategy, not just drought years. You're looking forward, 10 or for longer than that, on how to
20, 30, 40, 50 years.
Yeah.
Okay, so then what do we do today, tomorrow, and the rest of this year? What should residents do for the outside and the inside of their home? What should businesses be doing? What should the agricultural community be doing? Is there a percentage base that maybe should be used in order to conserve on the water that we have now, because we are in a drought situation?
Right, and again, I think that the answer lies in how we view the situation that we're in now versus what that situation looks like in the future. So today, without question, we're in a critical drought cycle. We're in a critical drought situation. We haven't seen in the historical records years with this little rain and this little snow. And rain and snow are an important part of California's water cycle. So this is an unusual situation, but one that we expect to repeat from time to time going out into the future. So what do we do about that? What we've been doing about it as the Metropolitan Water District of Southern California, for the past 20-plus years, we've been making constant investments in changing the water use of the residences, of the businesses. We've done that through rebate programs that have existed since the 1990s to replace toilets, shower heads, all those indoor water uses. Every device on the inside of a house uses less water than it did in the 1990s. So for all of the households, new households that are being built or new appliances that are being purchased, all of those things use less water per use than they used in the 1990s. That water savings changes the landscape of how much water is going to be needed in the future. Now there's more of a focus on the outdoors, and so you're talking about more efficient sprinkler systems, controllers for sprinklers that are based on, that get real-time feeds from the weather. They call them ET controllers for, it's a fancy word, but it basically waters according to what the grass needs.
My grass looks awful, I have to tell you. And I've been using a little less water, but I don't think if I used a lot or a little, it wouldn't matter. It looks terrible. Having said that, sorry, I had to just...
I have plants dying.
Yeah.
No, and I think that's part of what I'm trying to say is, in the short term, we do have a water situation. This is an unprecedented drought, and we're going to have to deal with that by cutting back water use in a way that isn't necessarily sustainable for the long term.
Right.
Asking people to cut back their water use by reducing the amount of showers that they take, or killing their lawns, or changing their landscapes, or I shouldn't say that, killing their lawns or killing their plants by not watering. That's not something that we're looking to do on the long term. But what do residents need to do? Look at what their water use habits are. Be aware of what those water use habits are. See if you can make a change that's permanent, like switching to a different landscape, not no landscape, but a different landscape.
Well, do they get
that uses less water.
other government incentives for that, or just you're telling people to go spend your money and take in less water and go change your plants? Because that could be expensive for people.
It can be expensive, and I'm proud to say that the Metropolitan Water District sees that and has provided, like I said, for 20 plus years, has provided funding for people to change out things like toilets, shower heads, other devices, and now we've expanded into that turf removal and turf replacement. We just recently allocated $450 million over a 2-year period to incentivize the removal of turf and replacement of that turf with more California-friendly landscapes.
I have to tell you, I'm one step away from getting that turf because
It
my
doesn't look
lawn.
bad.
Oh, I think
like
it looks
it.
terrible.
I
mean,
no,
you
I
can
like the
see it
turf.
depending upon the way that the
I've seen
sun
some
is.
good
and-
turf.
Really?
Yeah, I'm
Well, I need some good
impressed.
turf.
There's some neighbors that have done it.
But what about the farmers? Because I know that it's a business, and it's a tremendous business here in California. It's one of the main businesses actually for the state. But very often I'll drive up the 5, and there are sprinklers going, and I don't even know if there's crops in there. I mean, maybe the beginning there's seedlings, but are they being regulated as well?
There's been a market change in the irrigation practices that have been used in California agriculture.
I've seen that. Yeah.
Their water use is down. I think it's hard to see, from a one-time pass through up the 5 freeway.
Yeah.
You'll see a lot of water use because, in fact, agriculture uses a lot of water. Whether that's the appropriate amount of water, you couldn't determine.
Of course not.
Just by driving by.
Of course
and
not.
So I'm saying that agriculture has done a good job of making their water use more efficient for the crops that they're growing. And the choice of crops are also being looked at in terms of what's best for the economy and what's best for the balance of water supplies and the sustainability of that type of agriculture.
So maybe almonds are going to be, they're you have to water them, right? I mean, I've read somewhere it's like 3 gallons for one little almond.
For every gallon.
Yeah.
No, for every almond, it requires 3 gallons of water. That's actually amusing. But what about looking ahead? Now, it's very likely we're not going to stay in a drought. Just historically, if you look at our weather patterns, eventually we're on to probably going to get some rainy seasons.
This year, I heard.
Yeah, it's possible. But what happens if that doesn't exist in, let's say, the next 5 or 10 years? Is there a source? Is there somewhere we're going to go to get the water? And what do we do?
Well, that's actually part of what the strategy that we've been doing for the past 20 years is. So what we've been doing is making investments. In fact, Southern California, as a region, has invested over $12 billion over the last 20 years in improving our water infrastructure, in water use reductions, water use efficiency, in new storage programs to increase the amount of water that we can store when it is wet to those dry years like years like this. I think it's remarkable in a way that these past 2 years have been, perhaps the driest that California has seen. We've seen the reductions in water use come down from the state of California and the mandates on reducing water use really only in this year. And the question is, why is that? Well, the answer to that is we've made investments in storage, and that stored water helped sustain Southern California through last year and most of this year without even more drastic cuts than there would have been had we
positive.
not done that.
I also just think the word is out. I mean, we haven't seen rain in a long time, and the word is out. I think you've done a good job getting the word out.
If you're watering that long, the neighbors are shaming you, so you don't want to look bad.
Right, and again, I'd like to differentiate between what's happening in the short term and what we do in the future.
Right.
And what I'm saying, what we do in the future,
Storing
is
water.
to continue. Yeah, it's to continue our path of looking at supplementing our water supplies, quote unquote, the right way.
Right.
We're looking at locally developed supplies. Recycled water has become a primary investment for Southern California to increase its water supply.
From where?
When I say recycled water, that's recycled wastewater that's being treated to very high levels.
I will never, ever accept that. I don't care what they say. That just doesn't sound right to me. Recycled wastewater just doesn't sound right. What about, I know from the ocean it's become very, very expensive. That's an expensive process. But are they working to perhaps to find a better way to get water out of the ocean and not have it as costly?
Yeah, in fact, one of the investments that was made in San Diego County is the first really large-scale ocean desalination plant in California, and that's scheduled to come online sometime in the fall of this year.
That's
and so
exciting news.
That
And where would
investment
that
they
be?
made,
Is
right,
that northern?
it's part of the overall investments that
Okay.
have been made to help meet water supplies. So, a balanced approach of looking at how we change the water use landscape, coupled with investments in storage, in augmenting our water supplies, and in improving the reliability of our existing water system, whether it's the State Water Project water system that moves water throughout the state, both to agricultural and to urban users, or the Colorado River and the Colorado River Aqueduct, which brings water supplies from the Colorado River to Southern California. Supplementing and stabilizing those supplies along with new investments within the region is the strategy that we're using to manage through these droughts in the future.
I'll tell you, you really have to care, because I am I'm one of these people who will walk out of a room and turn off the lights.
Me too.
And I will take a super short shower, even with all this hair. And the other people in my family, I will tell you, I'm like the military. I'll sometimes knock on the door and say, "Are you almost out?" And of course I get screamed at. There's the male-female thing again, right? It's like, get out of my way. But you have to care. And
right, you have to care.
I do care. And I just hope that more people do. I mean, I think that there's a little bit that you can do. I also would like to see the farmers, I know it's big business, but a little more regulated, and I hope that there's a stricter regulation going on there, because they are using a tremendous amount of our water. And I'm excited about this plant down in San Diego.
It sounds like positive is coming out of a negative with
and then we're going to get hit with like super, super big rains this year, which is really cool. So then we can all start using our water again.
right. So
Right,
that's
and
good
if we
news.
get hit with super rains,
Yeah.
we made the investments in a lot of
Storage.
storage to be able to capture that rain.
Yeah.
for the drier years. That's
Right.
positive to me. This is
Yeah.
the first time I felt pretty good.
Yeah. Thanks for joining
Thanks
us.
for joining
Thanks a lot
us.
for joining
We're
us.
so
Okay.
happy to hear this.
Okay.
Thank you.
So we appreciate it. Thank you.
Appreciate it.
very
We'll have you
much.
back on again. We'll be keeping track of what's going on. How's that?
Okay, thank you very
All right.
much.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay. That was interesting.
Yeah, it was.
I guess, but in my house, I do know that everyone uses a different amount of water. So I actually get irritated a little bit, because I just think we can do our part no matter what.
Every little bit
drought or
counts.
not drought. Why
Right.
use so much water?
Right. It's wasteful. And I think, I've been cutting back on my watering, because I know people are, when you hear the sprinklers go off, I live in a very small community where everybody knows what's going on. And I do think I'm embarrassed. Like when I hear it go off, I'm like, it better not go on for long, because I know people are listening.
Yeah, no, they
weird.
are. You've got little people running around taking
Yeah.
pictures. So it was an interesting week. And
Yeah.
next week, I really want to keep track of what's going on with Trump, because, he's in town.
That'll
I'm
be
loving
interesting.
watching what's going on with the election, the upcoming election. The Republican Party is just hysterical.
I want to know what's going on behind the scenes. I wish I could be in the office of the Republican Party and find out what they're thinking about.
Well,
Trump's.
there is this group called Friends of Abe, FOA, and they are apparently hosting something for him on Friday. I want to get to the bottom of this, and
Right.
I want to know.
Oh, you're going to go?
No, but if I could, I would. And it's a very closed, secretive sort of little group.
Oh, really?
Of pretty conservative people out in Hollywood, and they like to keep it closed and quiet. And they are having him in. I don't know if they're having him in to powwow to talk about strategies to how he can get out of this mess, or to support him, or whatever. I think the name is interesting, Friends of Abe, because Abe Lincoln was a Republican.
That is a good name.
But I want to keep track of that. That's something I want to talk about next week. I want to see if I can get in there on Friday, or if I know anybody who's going. That's something I want to
I
keep
think that would
track
be a
of.
great thing to do.
Yeah,
It's interesting.
Anyway, fun show.
Very
I loved
fun.
having Dr. Foster on, so that was cool.
Right.
Anyway, and thank
Thank you,
for
everyone.
chiming in too. Thanks, everybody. See you next week.
Welcome to the new sound of online radio. Welcome to the sound